welcome to the show. Can you start out by telling us who you are and what you do?
Hi guys, I'm Hemant Chavan. I'm the co-founder of Brik Clik, which is an omni-channel retail marketplace. So what that basically means, we curate direct-to-consumer emerging brands in physical storefronts, online, as well as our virtual reality store. And we are working on creating this cool little Click Club, which is the product suite of different retail technologies. So everything from live streaming, virtual appointments, local 1-hour deliveries, everything under one umbrella. So just kind of expanding this concept of omni-channel.
So we're going to play a little game. Are you down to play a little game?
I'm very down to play this game. And I just wanted to add, when someone talks about the future of retail and says this one solution is the future of retail, just stop listening. Because like you said, right, the solution changes based on the retailer. So what serves a Nike doesn't serve Jill's flower shop, right? So what we did with testing out all these different things was we read all the McKinsey reports. We looked at everything from a consumer point of view, and we tested out all these different things and saw real engagement in customers, albeit with the caveat, low foot traffic, pandemic, less people in store. But we wanted to see what really worked or what didn't work. And when someone listens to some of our answers, they might have a different experience, and which is a real experience. We're just looking at it from our experience being in San Francisco and New York City.
Such a good caveat. And I just want to double highlight it for the listeners that as we go through these things, I am going to ask Hemant about some retail technologies that we've heard as being the next thing, or maybe a new big thing that you guys have tested out. Like I think just about all of these ones I'm going to mention. And as you tell me your experience with it, as the listener, I want you to understand that take this as a guide as to how to approach testing new things in your store. And yes, you're going to get some really great advice on like, actually, this like kind of just flopped for us. And you might relate to this story and say, that's going to flop for us as well. So you're getting a little bit of maybe a cheat around some of these tests, but also take this as a list of things that you could test and find your own success or failure on them. But Hemant, are you ready for this? Are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it. Let's do it, Kristen.
Okay. So the kind of game we're going to play is this going to live or die as a new retail technology? We'll say like 2030 as a benchmark, and we can kind of get a little bit nuanced in there. The first one I'm going to start with is a thing that really came out of the pandemic that we have all gone from finding as a real dumb thing to every restaurant and bar and retail operation is now using them. They're on every window ever. And these are QR codes. Tell us about your experience with QR codes. What's your verdict? Are they going to live or die?
They're going to die, and it's going to be a fast, painful death. And the reason why we analyzed, we put QR codes literally in every shelf of our store in San Francisco and New York City. And we trained our associates to redirect them to use these QR codes, because if we have a multi-brand store and we have 50 brands in a store, I'm not going to expect my one sales associate to know all these brands, brands and the story and the founder story. So basically, what I saw is none of the customers wanted to do that. When you're in a restaurant, you're an active customer and you want to make the purchase, which is have food. The only way that you can access the food is through a QR code. So reluctantly, you're going to use that. And again, that's human behavior because you want to eat food. And that's how you get through, is through the QR code. But with the store, the QR codes gets hidden, be it a 2,000 square feet store or 20,000 square feet store. There's so much content in the store that these small little QR codes, 1 by 1 inch QR code gets hidden, and no one wants to engage with them. And that didn't translate to our in-store experience when we were handling all these customers.
I think it does actually make a lot of sense. When I first saw this one, I was like, but I feel like QR codes made a comeback. But it's the difference in intent, I think. When you're talking about going into a restaurant, you've basically already converted by the time you sit down at the table. You already are going to buy something. When you go into a retail store, there is no official intent or guarantee that because you're in there, you're going to buy something. So that experience has to continue to add to getting you to the checkout. And it feels a little bit like QR codes can almost slow down that process or even become a little overwhelming of like, what do I scan? Which do I want to read into? How much do I want to read? How do I deal with all of this information with all these products? So like at first I was like, I feel like this would work. But as we talk about it, I get like, and that's an experience of like, you have to pull out your phone, you have to open your camera, you have to hope it works the first time. Usually it doesn't. You have to hope the link works. What if the Wi-Fi is down? There's all these things that then add in those obstacles, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do in retail.
And to just summarize that, it's the difference between like you said, a converted or engaged customer and a cold customer, right? So when you open up a website, there's a pop-up. The person just wants to hit close on it, right? All the time.
Yes.
So it's the same thing as a QR code in a store. You're pushing it, right? A push-pull marketing. I'm not a marketing genius, but like you're pushing all this on this customer who just doesn't want to deal with that, right? He wants to take the product, touch, feel, whatever. And you heard this a million times, right? And this has been done post-COVID. Touch, feel is like the trend, right? But it really is. That's what it is. They want to touch, feel, try, go to the checkout, and maybe where that QR code would work is, right? Like I know Venmo is doing that, but with a lot of SKU variation, it's difficult to do. But like if you want to have at the checkout, you have a QR code, and you instead, if you're, for example, your Wi-Fi is down and your POS system is not working, you can just have that as a backup, and you can manipulate the prices or whatever to at least get that checkout, right? If you're in a cashless store. So I think there could be some use, but as on a store level wide, from our experience, that's a caveat. It's from the data that we have, less than, I put 10% in the article, but really when we sift through the data more, it's less than that.
Wow. I love the comparison of it. A QR code on a product almost feels like a pop-up on a website. Like it's like, oh, but before you look at it, before you really check it out, like come and do this. That makes a lot of sense. The next one is very related, and I think we're going to have to define this a little bit as well. Nfc Tags. First, can you define what this is, and then tell us, is this going to survive or die in the next 10 years?
I'll start off with the answer. I think it's going to survive, and this is the reason why. It takes out, so basically just going back to the definition, it's these programmable button size tags that you can program anything from your website, a link to your website. You just basically, what you do is take your phone, you tap the, it's like a button, 1-inch diameter button that you can redirect you to your Instagram page. It can redirect you to a Stripe checkout. It could be redirecting you to the brand page on your website or something specific, right? So instead of like, for example, in an apparel store, instead of a price tag, you attach this, and you can just use a 3M tape at the back of this tag and attach it. You tap it, and everything about the product description, the price list, everything can pop up without the QR code. Because you take out that friction, and it's without the camera, you take out that friction, and we've seen again anywhere from 20 to 30% use, but it's been used. And what we do is we want reviews, right? Because we are from a store. So what we do is we put this NFC tag at a checkout, because now the customer's converted, and we have this nice little thing next to the POS which says, "Hey, this is how you can support a small business. Leave a review." What it does, it takes them, they tap that QR code, it takes them to the website, and we say, hey, you can just search the product and leave a review when you find that product that you just purchased. What that does is it's better than those coupon codes or the printable coupon codes that you're going to lose anyways. I've never had print receipts, you just throw it away. The worst thing, or the worst thing is, or the best thing is, at least the customer walks out with your website on his phone, right? And that's a converted customer. And then you use all your Google Analytics and retargeting. And that's, again, we talk about omni-channel, right? This is how you connect the online and offline by redirecting them to anything on your online channels.
Yeah, I think it reminds me so much of, I think a lot of times when we talk about like, can you get an in-store customer into your online system? Really, the one thing you think of is asking for an email or phone number at checkout, which we're going to get into next. But this feels like, there's a lot of consumers that have had really bad experiences with traditional retail giving their email, and so they don't want to. And it feels like just another way to interact with them digitally. And even if you don't have their email at that point, you've cookied them now on your site. You can retarget them. You can bring them back. You still have another touch point with them, and you've brought them into your digital world. Even if you haven't acquired, quote unquote, acquired them in the digital world, you're now connected to them in the digital world. So it feels like a seamless, easy, quick way to get them to get into your online system without having to necessarily ask for data if they feel like they don't want to give it to you.
And it looks nicer than a QR code because
and it looks nice.
You can put any sticker on it. You can customize it, make it look beautiful. And it's a soft push. It's not a hard push with like a QR code. And again, you have to just figure out, iterate where in your store it works well. And there's a different solution for, you can even redirect them to your social media. Like that's what we've done, or a discount code or something like that. So just there's endless ways. It's just like a line of code that you have to write. And then it's pretty simple. I mean, I'm not a programmer by any chance, but I like YouTube this, and it's pretty simple.
The other thing I really like about this is I feel like it opens up really interesting opportunities for the partnership between the retailer and the supplier. So these D2C brands that you're bringing onto the shelf, say you say, okay, we have an NFT tag on your product. Where do you want it to go? You're now offering that D2C brand another opportunity to test and understand how they function in retail. And if you're giving your suppliers even more information on the people who are coming in your store, they're going to want to keep selling with your store. And it just creates this like ecosystem of everybody is really helping each other. Okay, now we got to get into the conversation of asking for your email or phone number at checkout. I do think it's become a lot more normal. It's become less like when you went to Victoria's Secret or J. Crew when I was in high school, and you're like, at some point I had a fake email address that I would give stores because I'd be like, I'm going to get your sales emails every week. So this is kind of digital receipts, I think is how we bucket this, of getting the receipt to somebody digitally versus printing it out, meaning you're going to need their contact information to give them that receipt. This came out of COVID. This has been kind of happening for a while, but definitely COVID increased it because we didn't want to be handing over receipts. Will digital receipts survive, thrive, die?
Oh, it's here surviving till the end of the world, right? Till the next apocalypse. I'm all about it. This is my personal pet peeve. I don't want to be handed a paper receipt. I'm going to throw it away from a system.
I'm going to throw it away before I get out of the store. I mean, if there's a trash can by the door, it's getting thrown away, and that's the end of our engagement.
Exactly, right? So how do you monetize such a converted customer, right? Like a paper receipt. I mean, that's old school. And coming from a person who's been in physical spaces, right? Like I love anything physical, but why are you giving them a piece of paper? Because that's useless. You're spending money. You have to get it clutters your sales register area. I mean, I want a clean experience for my customer. Look, if people want it, and big retailers need, or chain retailers need to have it, but we saw a quarter of the people declining receipts. We saw a quarter of people giving us text receipts with their text numbers, which is golden in the current text marketing climate. And half of them gave email receipts. Look, there's going to be some junk in there. I'm not going to say that everything was clean, but at least we got a means of digitizing, or I don't know, it went into the ether of junk mail, but at least we didn't lose a sale, right? At the end of the day, we never had one customer saying, "Oh, you're not giving me a paper receipt, I'm walking away." And and like you said, right? COVID changed a lot of behavioral patterns, and some of it's like, hey, there's this thing, right? When everyone saw the big spike in e-commerce, when there was literally no competition with the stores, so it's like the cat's away, the mice are going to play. But I think this is more about a fundamental shift in consumer behavior which is what we wanted to bring out.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it makes so much sense. And I think the takeaway is, if you have gotten someone all the way to checkout and conversion in store, they have shown you with their wallet and their decision that they want to support your brand. And so don't miss the opportunity to make another connection. I would relate it to, you're at the bar and you meet somebody and he buys you a drink and then he's really nice and has great conversation. And then you want to go out on a date with him, but you need to get his number to make sure that you can follow up with him the next day. And so if you have a good experience and a customer has a good experience, give them at least the opportunity to stay connected with you on other channels, because then you can service them in all sorts of ways. So for a small business owner who's listening and saying like, I don't have an SMS program, I don't have an email program, I don't know how to start that. That's okay. Just start collecting those contact information of people who are converting. You can figure out what to send them later, but at least don't miss the opportunity to make that deeper connection.
That's a great analogy, because that's just the first date with that customer, right? And in a climate where there is less tourism, I don't know if it's going to ever return back to the mean, maybe in a few years, but you want that returning customer, right? So you want to get them on the second date, third date. So use all your different marketing campaigns, obviously, in your what works for you. But that's just like, let's put it right, that's just the first date, and you have to follow up with them constantly.
Yeah, it's my favorite metaphor, because you can take it really, really far too. Of say that's your first date, and then you do get the number. Okay, let's talk about what you're going to send them now that you have their contact information. Don't be the retailer who sends terrible texts trying to get them to convert immediately after they just left your store. What that feels like is meeting someone at a bar. That's your first date. You get their number, and the next day they text you and they say, hey, you want to come over and sleep with me? And then they text you that every single day. Hey, what about my sheets are new? Do you want to come over and sleep with me yet? You can't treat a relationship that way in the real world. You also can't treat a consumer relationship that way. So it's my favorite metaphor, because I can take it 18,000 different ways if I want to. Let's get into some of the fun, weird, futuristic stuff that I know you guys have tested. In-store gamification. This is another very buzzy word, which you can tell us a little bit about the actual execution of what you guys have tested. But gamification in a store, is that going to stick around, or is it going to die?
I think it's going to survive if you do it the right way. And what I mean by that is, you have those spin the wheel things on an email, on a website. It sticks or it doesn't stick, right? So what really sticks for in-store gamification is, this is what we really tested out. There's 10 different games that you played, but we played with our partner, Kris. This is what worked, right? Is we thought, what we were thinking about, like, what is going to convert that customer, right? And if he's not engaging with the QR codes, maybe give him a different medium. So what we did was we deployed this app called Kismet. So basically all your products in store are on the shopper on that app. You scan the product through the barcode on the product in store, and it gives you a pop-up to play for a digital scratch off. So we've all had that coin and piece of paper and you're scratching it off, right?
Yeah.
Now you're scratching off on your phone, and phone for me is the biggest real estate that exists anywhere right now, right? Because everyone's constant on their phone. So if the customer is engaged, he's ready to convert, but the price is a little high, works well with clean beauty stuff and wellness stuff, which is what we saw, is you play for this discount, which can range from anywhere from 5 to 25%. You give them 10 chances to give a discount. So you're just basically nibbling on your phone till you get a discount, right? So you get like 10 attempts, and you're going to get a discount anywhere from 5 to 25%. And this is how we are monetizing it, right? Or we're digitizing it. You win a discount 25%, you get that cerebral high, and all right, this $50 product is now worth $37.50, whatever. And the only way you get the discount is you input your email or your text number and give us your information. Again, all done through the right channels and making all the privacy legislations. And if the person gives you their information, and that's a way of us subscribing their data. or getting them in our system. And that's when they get a discount code. So instead of just giving them a 20-30% discount, we make them work for it, and we get data on the back end. And again, it's something very new.
It makes me think of in e-commerce when we all used to do that pop-up that's like the spinning wheel of like enter your email to win. But the difference is to me is like, it doesn't really work. I mean, it did at first on e-commerce. Now it's one of those things you see it and you're like, oh God, I've seen this on every other website. So you exit out of it real quick. And so I think somebody might be listening and going, if this sounds like the same thing that's died on e-commerce, why would it work in person? I think what that spinning wheel on a pop-up on a website is missing is there's actually no visceral feeling of excitement or actually playing a game. You're literally just clicking a button. There is no like interaction with it. Whereas in a store, even if you're doing it on your phone, you're in a physical space, you're looking at the product you're playing for, you're using your finger to scratch off on the phone. It does start to feel a lot more like an actual game versus I'm just giving you my email for this fake code to spin it a couple times and land on the same percentage every single time. This actually feels like I'm playing a game in almost like a game show setting because, yeah, you're looking at the product as you're trying to get a discount on it. I feel like that is the separation between those two things and why gamification online is trickier and why I think a lot of times it can feel really crappy. But gamification in store can be done very thoughtfully and actually be an experience add to the consumer instead of an experience takeaway like it can be with those pop-ups. Okay, let's do a fun one, a very interesting one. We've got two more, and then we'll go on to a couple other questions and wrap up. This is so much fun, though. Smart mirrors. Tell me about smart mirrors.
So this is one technology that we had a lot of votes on. We were going to deploy it, but we did not because it was very cost prohibitive, and it also what is it serving you? Are you getting your customer data through it, or is it converting? It helps in conversion when you're in an apparel store. You can call an attendant, or if you don't have to change. Like that was the thought process going into that, where maybe the customer wants to change doesn't want to go waste time and go in the back and change different outfits. But what we found out is by the time this gets built, right, it's like takes months, and then all the big retailers started ordering it. And for a small independent retailer spending, what's your payback on that, right? The cost to build out my store is much more cheaper than just the smart mirror. And it works in a niche segment when you have those retail margins to make up for the payback on this technology. Again, for me, it's a no, but it could work for some other retailers once you have that marketing dollars to spend on in your store fit out.
Yeah, the one thing I think of is at apparel, it could work where instead of having to go into a dressing room and try on all these clothes and get super sweaty while you're doing it, which is what always happens to me, and like stressed out and you're feeling rushed by a sales associate, all this, you can just kind of like swipe on a mirror. But the immediate thought that comes to my head is, then why are you in a physical store if you're going to virtually try on clothes? Isn't the entire piece of that feeling the clothes, putting them on, seeing how it hangs, which, VR and AR is getting really good. I don't think it will ever replace what it actually feels like to put on a really high quality piece of clothing that transforms who you are. Or, I think every woman ever has like put on a dress that you're like, oh, dang, like this is it. This is working. You're not going to get that full experience just kind of swiping on a mirror. So yeah, this one to me isn't surprising that wasn't a super high success for you guys, especially when it is so expensive. So, maybe Lululemon can afford to do this and you can try on one pair of leggings and then swipe on the colors. But I don't necessarily think it's where a small indie retailer competes. I think you compete on that human interaction. This is kind of coming back to the top of our conversation, constantly balancing, is the technology that we're putting in our store improving the human-to-human experience, or is it taking away from it? And you want it to be consistently tilting towards improving and making the human-to-human experience even more connective. especially as kind of a small indie retailer, because that's what you win on, is that like when I go into my favorite coffee shop or my favorite liquor store, they know my name. They know what I ordered last time. That stuff is, the tech doesn't matter. It's the human to human interaction. So balancing all these technological opportunities with, but is it actually helping when somebody walks in my store? Are they serviced as a human being? And the smart mirror feels like it's kind of a flashy thing that can be distracting almost.
Yeah. And beyond the ROI part of it, right? Are you collecting data? Are you converting the customer? Maybe you're converting the customer, but the privacy part of it, right? Part of why you go in your dressing room, it's have that intimate experience when no one's looking. I just want to see how it looks on me, as opposed to being, maybe the smart mirror is still inside the dressing room, or if you keep it, we thought of it when we did our concept, it's all along the walls. And it's like, so we're not investing in the back, we're monetizing every square foot of the space. But then as we thought about it more, and we got some data on it, it's like the privacy and everything, like I go back to saying it's drawn by human interaction and just fundamental human behavior. Someone wants to not be seen wearing that dress. They try out different things. And again, there might be a different use case, and part of this is a very iterative process, and someone figures it out. But from the initial data set that we had, I think it's a die for me.
Yeah, this feels like something that I would rather buy as a consumer to have in my home, and then e-commerce stores could facilitate being able to try on like that. That feels like something cool because it's bridging that experience. But yeah, to put it in a store sometimes feels like you're going almost backwards. Also, yeah, I don't want a mirror to be watching me change in a dressing room, but that just makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, last one, and I'm going to jump right to Survive because you guys are already doing this, and I want to talk about what you guys have done with this. So, virtual reality stores. For the listeners, let me kind of set the context of what it's like to go to Brik and Clik's virtual reality store. You go to the store, and it's literally like kind of an apartment walkthrough that you can do on like apartments.com, where you can click through. But it's even more than that. You're like able to virtually walk through the store, look at products, get the information, purchase them through this entire virtual reality experience. You don't have to have VR goggles. It's all like, you can do it on a desktop, you can do it on your phone. The first time I saw it, because at first I was like, this virtual reality stores feel like it's just going to be like clunky and awkward and like trying to be cool online with the store. First time I saw your virtual store, I was like, oh, I get it. It brings you back to walking through a store and almost this kind of like going back into a mall and having a treasure hunt type experience online in a much better way than like a drop-down menu on a normal e-commerce site. So I know your verdict is Survive because you guys have done it and have continued to do it. Tell us a little bit about the virtual reality store, how it's working, I'm baffled by this entire thing.
I mean, let's just take a step back, right? Like, and just slow down. Virtual reality, augmented reality. We've had people even can put VR, AR, AI. I'm like, these are three different technology suites which are totally different, right? Virtual reality is reinventing a physical space. It's a digital twin, as they call it, which is the buzzword. Augmented reality, you're in the actual physical space and you're bringing in a different virtual element in there. What we are trying to do is, and I get pushed back, hey, this is a real estate guy, is all about brick and mortar. This makes the e-commerce store much more dynamic than it is, right? Or even if you have a brand, people can walk into this virtual reality store, and this is how it works. You go onto a website, there's something called the Click Club, which is our technology suite, and then you click on Click Shop, which is what we think is the future of scalable retail and how you make physical stores scalable, right? You build once and you sell a million times. And so what we did was we built this, we did this virtual reality scan, and then we tagged all our products in this, right? So you go in, like you said, you can be in Tokyo, Kuala Lumpur, Tel Aviv, Nairobi, and you can go to a San Francisco store or an Oculus store in New York City, and you can navigate through in this virtual Sims kind of environment. You can click on those dots, And basically, you can learn about the products. You don't even have to buy it. You can learn about the product and get more information, but in a dynamic 3D environment. And it's connected to Shop Pay and checkout enabled. So you can literally check out. And we've had orders from Europe coming through that. And it's a slow burn right now when it comes to people adopting it. But I want to state for the record, we were the first multi-brand retailer to do that. And since then, we've had this was used in a quick service restaurant case by a big Mexican food chain last month, and then I had a luxury retailer do it in the last few months. So it's picking up, and it's from a scalability point of view, and we compare it to live streaming, right? Like again,
Yeah.
not going into that where people are saying live streaming is the future. Okay, in a post-pandemic world, less people were coming into stores, and live streaming was a quick Zoom call away. But you have to produce that content. You have to get talent, and you have to produce it all the time. Is that really from a scalability definition? Is that scalable? If you record your live stream, that's just YouTube in a different context, right? So that's where what we're doing with this virtual reality is just not for us, right? We can literally build it for every store. We go in, and it's a day's work, and basically we can get all the products for products of the store. We can even do when people talk about virtual malls, and then they put a spreadsheet in front of me. To be honest, it's a little laughable. But what is a real virtual store? It's this. You go in from your phone to any store in the world. As a retailer, you don't have to scan it, or you don't have to produce content all the time. All your products are there and this technology is just going to get much more dynamic. The scans are going to get much more cleaner. So it's like iPhone 1 version right now, or even it's maybe a more like the BlackBerry right now.
The flip phone.
The flip phone, like let's go Nokia with the snake and everything. And we're trying to get to iPhone 12 Max, right? So we're maybe too visionary or whatever. We're looking into the future of making sure physical stores have to survive. It's not going to survive in its current form, but how do you make it the scalable format where a store, even now the store is not bound by 11 to 7 store hours. It's unmanned, right? So it's again a complement to D2C, and it's not really a brick and mortar product. So that's what I keep on telling when we're trying to bridge the online and offline world.
Yeah, there's two things that I want to pull out of this. One is the thought process of, I'm a content marketer at heart, and it's even what we do with this show. Like, I don't record an hour-long episode with you and then just let that be the only thing we do with this content. I am going to take this, and we're going to have, there's already a blog post about this that you've written. We're going to have a recap post of this episode. We're going to have a tweet thread. We're going to have videos. It's taking, if you're going to invest in something, how can you repurpose it and just make it continue to build a flywheel of scalability? I had never, until you said that, thought about that in the sense of it's like repurposing everything, all that work you've put into a store. You're repurposing it in a new format without losing the magic and the value of what you've already created. And it allows you to become extraordinarily scalable. The second thing I really wanted to point out was something that I learned this season, actually, is that a lot of people talk about the trust that a retail store can bring to your brand. A lot of digitally native brands who've gone into retail say the second you have a store, it also impacts just your online sales because it adds some legitimacy to the business of, if I give my credit card to this company, and something goes terribly wrong, there's a physical location I can walk into. This is a real brand. I'm not being scammed. And so it gives an extra layer of trust. So being able to offer the virtual store is very similar of not only do we have a real store, but you can actually basically experience it to get that trust value and that trust battery of, this is very real. This is what I would have experienced going into the store. And now I feel confident giving my credit card information over. That trust of having a store is huge, and being able to scale that trust across all geographies of people who are shopping with you, that feels like a huge key to VR.
We ship it literally from that shelf that you clicked on, right? It's no one's garage. It's not from dropship warehouse in East Asia, right? It's literally coming from that shelf. And like you said, that brings it together in terms of like a dry use retail where the customer is apprehensive. It's a cold customer, it's top of your funnel. How do you quickly get them to the bottom of the funnel? And if we say a virtual reality store and we show them, if we get it on the right platform, we're building for the future, right? Like part of what Brik and Clik is, the future is right now. We're a little bit ahead of it. We have to let it stew and get the whole live streaming and live shopping and virtual appointments thing out of the way. But I'm thinking about the consumer in 2030, 2035 and beyond, where for physical stores to really survive, they have to digitize in many ways, and then they have to digitize their store associates. So exciting things on the horizon.
Yeah, retail's getting fun. It's getting exciting. I like it. If somebody is listening to this and maybe they're at the point of their journey where they went from physical retail first and now they've added e-commerce and they're trying to start to test out some other things, if I put myself in their shoes and I listen to this conversation, they're probably going, holy shit, guys, you've given me way too many ideas. There's too many possibilities. I don't know where to start, what to test. What would your advice be for starting to think about future technologies and how to implement some tests in your store in a way that won't make you lose your mind?
Start with knowing your customer. It's as simple as that. We have right now 2 stores. We have a pipeline of stores ready, shop in a shop concept with a chain retail that we are beta testing right now. But what we found in a Bay Area customer is so much more different than your downtown New York City customer. And if we open up a store in Soho, it's going to be, that customer base is going to be different than this downtown customer, which was next to, World Trade Center. It was going to be tourists, but it's returning customers and a transit customer. So what we curated, so it starts with the curation, right? For us, as a multi-brand retailer, of course, we curated different products, and we obviously deployed a lot of different technologies, and then we saw that this customer behaves or interacts this differently. So when we're in the Silicon Valley, the Bay Area store, the customer is much more tech savvy, or just has much more leisure time because we're in a mall, right? But again, it's a pretty big mall. It's with Westfield, and same with Oculus. But the customer we're in a transit center, it's a beautiful transit center. And then the customer just wants to grab his stuff and go. He doesn't want to engage the customer. So maybe we're biased with I'm going to not give, I said the QR code is going to die, but maybe in your store in, I don't know, in downtown Iowa City, maybe the QR codes work. The customer is much more in shopping with leisure and have more time to engage with that, right? So it really comes down to, I know the question is, what technology would you want to deploy? It starts with know your customer and then iterating with these different technologies. And look, a lot of these technologies, the VR store, even live shopping, right? I mean, it takes a lot of time to produce content around that. And there are platforms which you can make, which would be available pretty soon. It's trying to figure out that customer and iterating with these different technologies. And don't say that, I'm not saying the VR store is a solution for everything, nor is the virtual appointment. It's a product. I think the future is some product suite. So if a solution provider or whoever is listening, we get pitched even as an independent retailer or a small retailer right now by a lot of these solutions that they're talking about here. This is the future, or this is even when I did the blog and I reached out for sources, everyone's super doubled down on the solution as they would be because that's their business. But as a retailer, you're apprehensive of people approaching you and then testing out these takes a lot of time and effort, right? So we are like quick and dirty. Test this out, see what the solution is, iterate, move on to the next one, and figure it out. So I think the answer is some sort of product suite and then you pick and choose what works for you at a very low cost, right? Don't spend, unless, I mean, if you have the budget for it, go for it. But like,
have fun.
yeah, just I mean, just even if you are a big box retailer, or if you're a chain retailer, I mean, by the time some of these big teams have a meeting, we've already tested out some of these technologies. We found out doesn't work, and we've done the other one. So it takes a lot of time and effort. So be selective.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good note to kind of start to wrap on. And it's also what I say every time is whether we're talking about the right channels to promote on, or the right social media accounts, or should you do SMS or email, or should you even have e-commerce, these decisions can't be playbooked out, because it does come down to who is your customer and what do they want. The best example I can give, my husband has a 1990 Mitsubishi Montero. It's our kind of outdoor car. And when he goes to get it worked on, he goes to a local place called Jack's Alignment, and they run the shop like you walk in and you sign a piece of paper, a card with your name, your phone number, what you want from them. When you pay with a credit card, you have to write your credit card information out on that card, and he gives you a call. And my husband doesn't want that to change, because that is the kind of service he wants on that car in that situation. And they're one of the most popular alignment service shops in Colorado Springs. There would be no reason for them to transition to a fully cashless, extremely digitized model. It's not what their customers would want. And they would probably lose a lot of customers who come for that different experience, that kind of old school experience. So I love that answer so much, of like everything we're talking about. The caveat is, do your customers want it? Do you know your customers? Is it something they would use? Is it beneficial for them and you together?
That is as simple as that. Or we get like demands for, oh, do you have this? Do you have that? As an independent retailer, you have leeway with curation. So we just supplying the demand. It's econ 101 pretty much, right? We're building a store, which is our store experience, which is not a shop within a shop where you're building out for a D2C brand. We're not building out 200 square feet or 300 square feet or 500 square feet and keeping it like a mini mall type setting. The way we designed it, and our designer is one of the biggest retail, if not the biggest retail architects, is how do you make it like this really navigatable, like a store that is much more organic in its product placement, right? Everyone talks about lifestyle studio and lifestyle spaces and lifestyle content. So we created these dioramas, which is a bedroom, a bathroom, a living room, and then we placed products in their in these dioramas, so that you can imagine a moisturizer in your bathroom, a mattress in your bedroom. And if a retailer changes and they want to graduate to they want to open their own stores or graduate to a big box retailer, they at least test out retail with us, or a D2C retailer, a D2C brand test out retail with us at a very low cost point. And we don't have to then charge them thousands of dollars to be in our store, because we're not spending all that capital investment in our stores. And then it's, again, being a customer, I'm just like, you walk into the store, it's a white wall, maybe some graphics on the wall, and there's shelves and fixtures. That's it. Like when you talk about reinventing, we're talking about our technology, but the store design in itself is, you have to start thinking about why is there a reason for customers to walk into the store. And it's not this Instagrammable, experiential. We went through without saying disruptor as a buzzword till right now, or we didn't use experiential for an hour and a half. What we call it is functional experiential, where it's something that you can envision in your own store. And we keep these, even though we're a dry goods used store, we have the basket at the entrance of the store. It's really nice baskets. So we want the customer to fill it with a basket of goods and find these complementary brands. So when you have a shop within a shop, or you give 200 square feet to this, 300 square feet, and then you're charging rent to them, which is showcase fees. It's basically, you're telling the customer, don't walk into this, walk in, even though they will, but it's not organic, right? It feels like a store is the mall, and the brands are the retailers in that mall. So if you keep these products, we get like average order volumes of like 5 to 6 products, and you walk into the store with your lead D2C brand, and then the smaller brands or the emerging brands get discovered because of the anchor brand at this stage, right? And so instead of the anchor tenant, it's the anchor brand. And then you're getting that complementary sales, and the brands are seeing that discovery really happening without walls, right? It's like the flex office concept or the open office concept, right? But in stores. Sorry, I went off a tangent, but I really wanted to talk about that.
I love tangents. That's what we do here. I love the note of don't just be experiential or Instagrammable just for Instagrammable's sake. Like, somebody coming into your store and taking a bunch of pictures in front of a wall is great, but are they spending money? Are they converting? Are they coming back? If not, then you've just made a great wall for people to take an Instagram picture on, and that's about it, which is cool, but not exactly going to keep you in business for a long time. So, Hemant, I am excited to hear your answer to this question, because I think you're acting out resilience at top speed right now. So what does resilience mean to you?
Resilience means to me everything that you see in a physical world that's manifested through your mental capacity, right? Like for me, it's the reason why I'm doing this because I love physical spaces, and retail is just a medium. Stores are going to evolve, and it's not just the store, quote unquote store. It's not a content studio. It's just people coming in to this physical store or this physical space and interacting with them, and that's what makes our life much more fulfilling. And resilience for me is, helping small businesses. I'm a small business that is supporting other small businesses. I moved to New York and I lived here for like the last 10 years is because of the first floor retail, restaurants, bars. And I don't want it to be filled with chain retailers or whatever. And that's just going to kill it for the next cycle of people who come in, and they don't see the first floor retail. It could be in any city, right? The first floor spaces that I saw and I interacted with. And for me, it's like coming in it's a little opportunistic, but coming in and reviving these spaces when there could be a foreign sign literally like 10 stores in 5-block radius of New York City it's just going to kill the economy and small businesses. But when you take as an entrepreneur who's like starting out right now, it takes a lot of when retail is not front and center with a lot of people, and there's all this payroll and all these different things come into you. It takes a lot of effort to just the physical work that goes into building a space and then executing and operating the space. But I don't want to use the word greater good, but it's for fulfilling what people like to do. It's interphysical interaction, and that's basically our whole thesis.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. That's the whole thesis of this show, is that resilience in retail is based around saving these communities and bringing better experiences to local communities, and making retail like fantastic and fun and personal again. Hemant, thank you so much. This has been one of the most fun. I don't even know. Do we call this an interview? It was like a live game show. It was fantastic. Thank you for being on the show.
Producing content, Kristen. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you for even helping me with the blog and everything. This is great. I love listening to your show, and it's I hopefully part of this D2C community or omni-channel community. But I love physical spaces, and I'm glad that you have me on the show.